After kicking Chase Rogers out of class for being disruptive, Professor Murdock told the students that she was aware of the fight that had just broken out on campus. Kevin hoped she wasn't going to notice him, but Dalton didn't seem very worried. Professor Murdock fixed her eyes on Kevin and Dalton and asked them, "Do you two still want to pretend it wasn't you? Do you really think it was a good idea to fight on the first day of school? Stand up right now." Kevin got up from his chair sheepishly. He didn't expect Professor Murdock to recognize him in Dalton. Unlike Kevin, Dalton stood up very readily. The way he stood up so eagerly, it looked like Dalton thought he was going to be praised by the professor. As Professor Murdock spoke, she slowly walked from the podium to the back row and looked Dalton in the eyes. She told the class, "Dalton Steele is the sole heir to the Steele's family fortune. When his great-grandfather came to Chicago, he had nothing. He relied on his own martial arts training and his courage to build his fortune from scratch. Over the past few years, the Steele's family businesses have spread throughout the region," she continued. "And even though he never committed any major crimes, he did pretty much whatever he wanted. However, he never did anything to stain the family name." Upon hearing this, Dalton started to wonder what the professor was getting at. He didn't understand why she seemed to know so much about his family. Then Professor Murdock turned to Kevin and said, "You married into the Jones family. Since your marriage, you've been wasting your time hanging around the house. The strange thing is that you recently moved your parents to Chicago from their home in the country, and you even got them to move into one of the new luxury condos at the Salix Leaf Hotel complex. Isn't that so?" The other students in the class were amused by this last detail and started to laugh. How could a freeloader manage to buy a condo in a luxury building, especially the most exclusive place in the whole city? This had to be a joke. The professor was visibly irritated by their laughter. Kevin was secretly surprised to see her reaction, but he suspected that she was far more powerful than she looked. "What are you laughing at? What's so funny about what I just said? Don't you realize that Kevin probably had good reason to put himself in that situation?" Professor Murdock said with a serious look on her face. "Don't think that you're superior to him just because you're from wealthy families. I'm not afraid to tell you that you're all a bunch of trash as far as I'm concerned." No one dared to argue with her. They had already seen the consequences of ticking her off, and nobody wanted to suffer the same fate as Chase Rogers. So they just sat there and listened. Kevin looked at Professor Murdock in astonishment. He'd never expected this teacher to speak up for him. "Don't be so surprised. We carefully checked the backgrounds and social media accounts of every student who applied to the school. That's why I warned all of you to be more cautious in the future," Professor Murdock explained to them in a very dignified tone. Then she looked at Kevin and Dalton coldly and scolded them. "I don't care what reason you two have for what you did, it's never right to bring your disagreements onto school property. You won't be expelled, but your punishment is to run 50 laps around the football field." What the hell did she just say? 50 laps? Can she do that? Kevin said to himself. He hoped he'd heard her wrong. "I'm not going. I won't even run 50 feet, Dalton replied curtly. He turned around and sat down without asking for Professor Murdock's permission. "You really aren't going to run?" she asked as she glared at him. "No, I'm not going to run. I don't run from any challenge," Dalton replied confidently. As soon as his voice faded, Professor Murdock walked over to the back of the classroom and put her fist through the brick wall without even trying. She brushed off her jacket as she turned to Dalton and asked him again, "Are you sure you wouldn't rather just go for a little run?" "Come on, Dalton. I don't think we really have a choice," Kevin whispered to his friend. Professor Murdock was out of patience. Then she threatened them again. "What are you waiting for? Either you two go and run right now or you're out of this school." "Of course, Professor Murdock," Kevin said agreeably as he pulled Dalton by the arm. "We're on our way." Kevin didn't want to test Professor Murdock's patience anymore. When they got outside, they put their things down by the bleachers and started jogging around the field. "Why did you go along with her, Kevin? This is humiliating. I feel like a little kid," Dalton complained as he limped along. "We didn't have a choice. Did you see how powerful she was? And do you really want to get kicked out on the first day? You have to look at the bigger picture," Kevin explained to him. Dalton didn't say anything more. He just followed Kevin around and around the field. On the first day of school, there usually isn't much to learn. After the professors introduced themselves, they left the classroom so that the students could interact and get to know each other. After all, they would be together for the next 4 years. Blair was still feeling the effects of Dalton's slap earlier in the day. When he saw Dalton and Kevin running around the field, he got really excited. "You messed with the wrong person. It serves you right to be punished," Blair thought to himself. Then he decided to get a little revenge and shouted loudly, "Guys, come and take a look. That piece of trash is running laps on the first day of school." A lot of students turned around to see what he was talking about. They were all young adults, and it was difficult for them to return to school. Some of them were already a little bored, so when they saw that there was something interesting going on, they all lined up to watch. But Blair's plan backfired, and they started to comment to each other about how impressive it was for someone to use their spare time for training. It actually inspired them. This might have helped Kevin's reputation in the school. Even Lily and Phoebe Anderson were standing by the window watching Kevin run laps around the field, but they were thinking about completely different things. Kevin and Dalton figured that their 50 laps would add up to a little over 10 miles. Considering the shape Dalton was in just a couple of days ago, it was a miracle that he could get that far. It only took them about an hour and a half, including the time they took to stretch. The whole time they were running, their classmates were watching them. "I can't believe how tired I am," Dalton complained as he dropped to the ground when he was finished. "Well, it's a good thing you took the power pill after the restoration pill," Kevin commented. And then he added, "I was just getting warmed up. I'm surprised she only wanted us to run 10 miles. I think it was more to put us in our place than anything else." They were both in great shape to start with, but the power pill did wonders for their stamina. "What do you say we hit the showers and then go get something to eat?" Dalton suggested. He wanted a reward after that experience, and his clothes were soaked with sweat, practically sticking to his skin. "The way I'm feeling, I could just jump in the fountain in front of the administration building," Kevin joked. "Just let me lie here for a while. I don't think I can feel my legs," Dalton grumbled as he lay on the field exhausted. While they were talking, Lily walked over and smiled at the two of them. Then she offered Kevin and Dalton each a bottle of water. "That's very thoughtful of you, Lily. Just what we needed after punishment like that," Dalton said gratefully as he took the bottle. He unscrewed the top and poured the water down his throat like he was in a drinking contest. "That sure feels good," he said with a satisfied sigh. But Kevin didn't take the bottle that Lily had offered him. In fact, he didn't even look at her. "Come on, get up. Let's go clean up and get something to eat and drink," Kevin exclaimed as he gave Dalton a friendly kick in the calf. Dalton stood up shakily. His legs still felt pretty weak, even though his tendons had almost completely healed. But he felt like a gust of wind could knock him over. He looked at Kevin and told him, "Can't you see that Lily wants to talk to you about something?" "There's nothing for us to talk about. Let's go get a drink," Kevin replied bitterly. Seeing Kevin acting like this made Lily anxious, and she tugged on his arm. "I know I was really wrong, but you can't stay mad forever. Please come home with me." "What's taking you so long, Dalton? Are we going to take a shower or not? If you go home smelling like that, Miranda will kick you out of the house," Kevin teased. He continued to ignore Lily and abruptly turned around to leave. "I'll get a drink with you another day. Looks like your wife wants you to go home with her," Dalton said considerately as he walked off the field. Kevin wanted to leave too, but Lily was hugging him. The smell of his sweat didn't really bother her, and she buried her head in his chest. "Can you please forgive me? I know I was wrong," Lily begged him. She'd spent a lot of time thinking over the past few days. Not only did she realize that she'd made a huge mistake, but she also knew that she'd let Kevin down. "Even if you don't forgive me right now, I still won't let you go," Lily sobbed. "Do you think you can stop me?" Kevin asked without changing his expression. "Even if I can't stop you, I'll still follow you. If I can't find you at school, then I'll go to Corwin Tower to wait for you. In any case, I'll follow you even to the ends of the earth," Lily cried. Kevin was considering going with her, not because he forgave her, but because if she kept pestering him like this, he'd have a hard time getting anything done. Kevin finally let out a long sigh and gave in. "Okay, I'll go with you." "Really?" Lily asked doubtfully, but she still didn't take her hand off his arm. "If you don't let go of my arm, I'll leave right now and you'll never be able to find me again," Kevin said gloomily. Lily was so frightened when she heard him say this that she quickly let go. "Come on," Kevin mumbled as he pointed to the other side of the campus where he'd parked his car. Once they got into Kevin's car, Lily told him that she and her mother had moved into a new place. They were now living in a condo at the Salix Leaf Hotel's new development. Kevin didn't say anything in reply. He just nodded unemotionally. On the way to her new home, Lily kept looking for topics to talk about, but Kevin only answered yeah and yup. After more than an hour, Kevin pulled into the parking garage under Lily's building. She'd certainly found a tasteful place, and she bought her condo at just the right time. It had already increased in value by the next day because there was such a demand for the properties in her building. Kevin looked around and saw all the amazing facilities. Plus, the architecture was exquisite and the layout was just right. He was relieved to see just how beautifully the place had turned out. He could tell that Rachel had put a lot of effort into the project, and she certainly hadn't let him down. When they got out of the car, Lily took Kevin by the arm and told him excitedly, "My place is in this tower." Then she paused before adding, "I'll make something delicious for you to eat when we get upstairs." "You can head up there first. I'd like to go and buy some gifts," Kevin suggested as he looked at the large shopping mall next to the building. "What gifts are you thinking of getting?" Lily smiled and replied, "The best gift for me would be to forgive me." "I really think I should get something for your mom," Kevin said uneasily. Dorothy already had a horrible opinion of him. How could he return home as a former jailbird? Who knew how she might react? "You really don't need to buy anything. I'll help you deal with my mom," Lily offered. She was really afraid that Kevin would change his mind and drive away. Then how could she ever find him again? "I think it would be better to buy her something. I haven't been back in a while, plus I still need to go and see my parents. I'm sure they're still worried about me," Kevin insisted. "Okay, but I'll go with you." Lily volunteered as she took him by the arm. After the disaster with Nolan Hill, she was still afraid. Now the only place she felt safe was by Kevin's side. "Let's go," Kevin exclaimed. Then he locked his car and started walking towards the shopping mall. There was a reason this development was so popular. It had absolutely everything you could want. The residents didn't need to leave the property if they didn't feel like it. Even if a shop didn't have exactly what you wanted, they could send for it and deliver it to your home for no extra charge. But before they'd gotten very far, a young woman ran over to them in a panic. She kept looking behind her and accidentally bumped into Lily. "I'm so sorry, I didn't do it on purpose," she hurriedly apologized. "No problem, just be a little more careful," Lily replied considerately. But Kevin had a bad feeling and asked her, "Is there something wrong?" He could tell that she was a university student, and he could see that she was in a hurry. But what worried him was that her eyes were filled with panic. When Kevin and Lily arrived at her building's parking garage, they decided to go to the mall first and buy a gift for Dorothy. On the way to the mall entrance, a young woman bumped into Lily because she was looking behind her fearfully while she was walking. Kevin asked her if something was wrong. Kevin didn't always meddle in other people's business, but after all, the Salix Leaf Hotel's vast complex was partly his responsibility. He'd personally put Rachel in charge of it, and if something bad happened here, it was very likely that it would fall back on him sooner or later. That's why Kevin decided to ask the woman if she needed any help. No, the woman replied hesitantly, but Kevin could see in her eyes that something wasn't right. "Really?" Kevin asked with a slight frown. The more he looked at the young woman, the more he felt that she needed help. "Since she said it was nothing, Kevin, don't force her." Lily couldn't help but try to persuade him. She felt that Kevin had a lot of good qualities, but she didn't understand why he was putting his nose in someone else's business. Just as the woman was about to answer Kevin, a man and a woman suddenly ran over to them in a hurry. They both seemed to be about the same age as she was. "What are you running for, Melody? Couldn't you tell I was just joking? Did you have to run so far?" the man asked her while trying to catch his breath. He was dressed in very expensive clothing, but nothing seemed to match. He looked like it all thrown up on him. The woman who was with him said, "Mr. Collins chose you from all the others he could have had. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth." I didn't," Melody replied feebly. "Didn't you come here today to take a look at the layout of one of the condos?" the man continued. "As I explained to you, my sister is the general manager of this complex." "You're Rachel's brother?" Kevin asked in disbelief. Lily got a strange look on her face. She and Kevin never knew that Rachel had a brother who was a bully. "Who do you think you are to bring my sister's name into this?" the man sneered as he looked Kevin up and down. Just then, the man's companion suddenly exclaimed, "I think I understand. Melody, are you afraid of becoming Riley's mistress?" Melody looked at Kevin and said desperately, No. Cindy, that's nonsense. I just accidentally bumped into this lady." "Oh, so you bumped into her? Do you expect anyone to believe what you just said?" Cindy spat back. "You really are useless, aren't you? Have you been living in the country for so long that you don't know how things work in the big city? Just look at this man," Cindy continued as she gestured to Kevin. "How can you compare this guy to Riley? But I guess it makes sense. Only someone from the middle of nowhere would be interested in some poor slob like this." Then she took the man by the arm and sneered, "Riley, I feel sorry for you. Look at what kind of you're interested in. The first chance she got, she ran to this jerk. Now she's acting all innocent." "Are you done talking?" Kevin growled. He couldn't take it anymore, and he got more upset because he saw that Melody was about to cry. Lily didn't look so good either. She really couldn't understand why these people were being so mean to each other. "Shut up," the man scolded him. "How can you come in here dressed like that and then talk back to me?" Then he sneered. "Just look at you. I'll bet you couldn't even afford to buy a toilet in this place." He spat on the ground and threatened, "You shouldn't even be in here. I'm calling security to have you thrown out so I don't have to look at you anymore." "I can't believe how arrogant you are. Aren't you afraid of karma?" Kevin asked coldly. The guy had no idea who he was dealing with. "Why don't you mind your own business? If you know what's good for you, you'll get out of here right now. Otherwise, you may find yourself with a couple of broken legs," the man threatened. "I'm not really afraid of your empty threats. Why don't you go ahead and break my legs?" Kevin answered back. He didn't want to waste any more time with this guy. Then he turned around and said to Lily, "Call Rachel right away. Tell her that I need her to drop whatever she's doing and come down here." Lily didn't waste a second. She couldn't bear to watch this man bullying everyone. She was also glad to see that Kevin had asked her to do something for him, which meant he probably wasn't angry with her anymore. Lily quickly took out her phone and called Rachel. She gave her Kevin's message word for word. "You're just yanking my chain. How could you possibly know my sister?" the man said disdainfully. "Melody, don't let this guy fool you. Just ask him if he knows who Riley's sister is," Cindy scoffed. "The manager of the Salix Leaf Hotel is the most powerful woman in Chicago. Do you really think they know each other?" The man pulled out his phone and called Rachel too. "I'll get someone to break your legs right now. Let's see if you can still act cool when that happens." "Rachel, someone's bullying me down in the main garage. Send a few of your people to help me deal with him," he shouted into his phone. When she heard this, Melody felt guilty but was also deeply moved. She didn't expect Kevin to help her this much. After all, they just met by chance. At the same time, Melody also knew that if it wasn't for her, Kevin wouldn't be in this humiliating situation. So she decided to do something to keep him from being harmed. "Riley, that's enough. I'll do whatever you want, but you have to promise to let this man and his wife leave here safely," she said tearfully. "Oh, so you agree now?" Riley blurted out mockingly. "Well, it's too late. I'm not interested in you anymore. I just want to have this guy's legs broken." Kevin didn't wait for Melody to reply. He reached out and pulled her behind him as he sized up the situation. "So you're Riley Collins?" Kevin asked ominously. "What's it with you?" Riley roared angrily. "Just look at you in your crappy clothes. What did you think you were going to do with this college student anyway? How about if I teach you a lesson?" Just as Riley finished speaking, pulled up next to them, and Rachel hurriedly got out of the car. "How did you get here so quickly, Rachel?" Riley said excitedly. He pointed at Kevin and shouted, "This scumbag has been bullying me. I want you to have him thrown off the property." Melody got very upset when she saw Rachel. She thought she was going to be in serious trouble, and based on how Kevin was dressed, she figured they were both in the same boat. People like them shouldn't provoke someone of Rachel's stature. But to her great surprise, Rachel didn't even look at Riley, as she ran up to Kevin and nervously called him boss. Actually, when Rachel got the calls from Lily and Riley, she was showing some condos to a new client. When she realized what was going on, she immediately dropped everything and rushed over. Riley couldn't believe his eyes. "Rachel, what are you doing? Why are you being so polite to this hillbilly?" Riley asked his sister as he walked over to her. He thought she had mistaken him for someone else. Suddenly, Rachel slapped her brother in the face. Then she scolded him. "What the hell's wrong with you? If he's a hillbilly, what do you think that makes you?" Melody and Cindy were stunned when they heard her say that. But Riley was even more surprised at what his sister had just said. "I'll deal with you later," Rachel said to her brother as she gave him a dirty look. Then she quickly turned around to apologize to Kevin sincerely. "I'm sorry, boss. My family has always spoiled him. He had no idea who you were, so I hope you can forgive him." Rachel was incredibly anxious. She'd heard that Kevin had been arrested at the Salix Leaf Hotel for beating someone up, but she hadn't looked into it any further. Then when Dalton Steele was attacked while trying to protect Lily as she ate dinner there, she hadn't told Kevin about that either. So Rachel knew that Kevin had to be pretty angry with her, and she was afraid that he'd turn that anger on her brother. If that happened, it certainly wouldn't end well for Riley. She'd been enjoying hobnobbing with Chicago's upper crust, and it was all because of Kevin's support. And if Kevin had helped her into this high position, he could also take her right back down. "Forgive him? You've got to be kidding. Your brother just said that he wanted to find someone to break my leg," Kevin informed her. Rachel couldn't help shaking her head when she heard that. "Don't joke with me, boss. My brother wouldn't dare lay a finger on you." "You can ask Lily if you don't believe me," Kevin replied candidly. Rachel couldn't believe what she was hearing. She gritted her teeth as she turned around and grabbed Riley's ear. "Hurry up and apologize to Kevin. If you don't beg for his forgiveness right now, you'll never be able to step foot into the family home again for the rest of your life." Rachel was absolutely livid because of her younger brother's behavior. She knew that their parents had always spoiled him. He was a troublemaker in school and never did his assignments on time. He always kept getting involved with friends who just wanted to use him for his connections so they could climb the social ladder. Now that she was doing so well, Rachel thought she could help support her family. Since Riley was younger than her and had just finished college, she hoped to find a company where he could work for a couple of years to get some experience. That could help turn things around for him. But here he was actually starting a fight with Kevin over nothing. This could ruin their family. On top of that, she knew what had happened to Nolan Hill when he pissed Kevin off. "I'm very sorry, sir. It was all my fault. Please forgive me," Riley apologized to Kevin very sincerely. Riley Collins may have been a playboy, but he wasn't obtuse. He could see how afraid his sister was of Kevin, so he figured it was better to not find himself on his bad side. If his sister called Kevin boss, then he'd better call him sir. Melody and Cindy were in utter amazement as they watched the whole scene play out. They had no idea why Rachel was being so respectful toward Kevin. Both of them had already realized that this ordinary-looking man who looked like he couldn't even afford to pay for parking was the real CEO of the Salix Leaf Hotel. "That's quite a change from what you were saying to me before," Kevin smirked. "Didn't you just say you wanted to have my legs broken?" "Please accept my apology. I shouldn't have talked to you the way I did, and I know I was wrong to do it," Riley begged him. He seemed to be on the verge of tears. Kevin didn't say anything. He just scowled and stared at him as he crossed his arms in front of his chest. Rachel regained her composure and walked over to Kevin. She carefully asked him, "What do you think we should do about this, boss?" Rachel really wanted to ask Kevin if he'd calm down, but that would have been ridiculous. The smile on his face made her very unsure about how he was going to respond. "He's your brother. What do you think we should do with him?" Kevin asked as he glanced at Rachel. Not only did he insult me, but he also insulted this young lady behind me." Rachel didn't understand what Kevin meant. She immediately walked over to Melody and apologized to her. "Hi, I'm Riley's older sister. If he's offended you in any way, I hope you can accept my apologies. Can you forgive him?" Actually, Melody stammered. She really didn't know what to say. In fact, she never thought that someone like Rachel would actually apologize to her. Seeing Melody's reaction, Rachel walked over to her brother and kicked him in the shin. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and apologize. Do you want me to do everything for you?" Riley didn't argue with her at all. He limped over to Melody and said, "I'm sorry." But would this be enough to satisfy Kevin? Riley and Lily each called Rachel to come down to the parking garage to settle Riley's argument with Kevin. When she got there, Rachel immediately told Kevin she was sorry for her brother's behavior and then made him apologize to both Kevin and Melody. Seeing how frightened Riley looked, Melody was speechless for a moment. The two of them had been college classmates in Chicago. Back in school, Riley bullied her a lot because she was from a small farming town outside the city. But Melody was extremely kind-hearted, so she didn't really hate him for this. Melody looked at Kevin and tried to figure him out. She realized that this unassuming young man in shabby clothes was actually incredibly powerful, and Riley's fate was now in his hands. "Forgive him?" Kevin asked as though he didn't comprehend. Of course he understood what Melody meant. "Actually, he didn't do anything wrong. Please, let him off the hook," Melody replied. She was obviously very good-natured. "Oh, all right," Kevin said with a smirk as he gave Riley a strong slap on the back. "But from now on, you'd better behave yourself. Don't embarrass your sister anymore. Now get lost." In fact, Kevin didn't want Riley to be punished too hard. It wasn't worth it for Kevin to get angry. Besides, he was Rachel's younger brother, so he was willing to cut the guy some slack. "Thank you, sir," Riley answered him as he wiped the sweat off his forehead. He felt like he'd just gotten a reprieve from the governor. He straightened out his clothes as he walked away with Cindy. When the two of them were out of earshot, Cindy whispered to him, "Are you okay, Riley? Now what are we going to do to have some fun?" "You're on your own, and don't bother calling me again," he barked at her. Then he walked away, leaving her wondering what had just happened. He was really angry with Cindy. It had actually been her idea to go after Melody, and look how that had turned out. Not only had he been taught a lesson, but he'd almost gotten his sister Rachel in big trouble with her boss. Rachel let out a long sigh and wondered what to do next. It was a good thing that Kevin wasn't upset with her, or else things wouldn't have turned out so well. "Go on back to work. Don't worry about me and Lily. We'll be okay," Kevin replied as he gave Rachel a glance that wasn't quite as friendly as usual. "Thank you, boss," Rachel quickly answered. "I'll head back up to my office. Enjoy your walk." Kevin turned around and smiled at Melody. "Everything's okay now. We'll be on our way." Then he and Lily headed to the shopping mall. When Kevin had gotten a little farther away, Melody finally came back to her senses and shouted loudly, "Hey, what's your name?" "My name is Kevin. Kevin Williams," he answered casually without even turning his head. After about half an hour, Kevin found a nice gift for his mother-in-law. Then he went up to his parents' apartment to visit with them. He let them know he was doing okay and chatted with them for a while. After they said their goodbyes, he followed Lily back to her new place. As soon as Kevin walked in the door, Dorothy got in his face and started scolding him. "What are you doing back here, you good-for-nothing? I thought you were still in jail. What did you do to get out so fast?" She took a breath and continued to berate him. "You're like a piece of gum on my shoe. I can't seem to get rid of you. Can't you see that Lily and I have already moved? You're not welcome here." Kevin was already used to being treated like this, so it just rolled off his back. Lily tried to calm her mother down and pleaded with her. "Mom, please don't talk about Kevin like that anymore. I was the one who found him and asked him to come back home with me." She was really afraid. It hadn't been easy for her to beg Kevin to agree to come back with her. What would happen if her mother made him leave again? "What did you just say? I must not have heard you right," Dorothy said in disbelief. "Are you sick or something?" "Mom, I'm very clear-headed now." Don't forget that Kevin is my husband. Now that he's been released, of course I'll take him back." Lily answered her mother very naturally. "What did I ever do to deserve such an unreasonable daughter? Just look at this freeloader. Is he that pleasing to you? Do you think he's some kind of treasure?" Dorothy shrieked louder and louder. Kevin scratched his head awkwardly and made a peace offering. "Mom, I brought you something." But Dorothy interrupted Kevin before he could finish what he was saying. She was so angry that her upper lip was quivering. "I don't want anything from you. Get out of here this instant and don't ever show your face here again. And you," she turned to Lily and squawked, "I want you to go and get your divorce papers tomorrow. From now on, this bum won't be allowed to step foot in my house." "Mom, what are you talking about? How could I ever divorce Kevin?" Lily answered quickly, even before her husband could speak. "Lily, are you on drugs or something?" Dorothy shouted as she tried to catch her breath. "Just open your eyes and take a good look at him. What does he have that's so special? Didn't you tell me that Nolan Hill was a good catch? You went out to dinner with him, but what happened then? He's got to be better than this deadbeat." When she heard Dorothy mention Nolan Hill, Lily got really nervous. She looked over at Kevin to see how he would react. When she saw that he wasn't upset, she said, "Mom, can you please not mention Nolan Hill? He means nothing to me." Dorothy didn't know anything about what had happened with Nolan. All she knew was that he'd sent Lily a lot of gifts. But she had no idea what happened after dinner with him, either the fight with Dalton or the one with Kevin. Lily had never mentioned any of it to her because she didn't want her mother to worry. So as far as Dorothy knew, Nolan was a great guy and a fine catch for her daughter. Lily sighed and decided to let Kevin have a seat before she explained everything to her mother. "Who told you that you could sit down?" Dorothy snapped at him. Kevin didn't answer her question. All he could do was let out a sigh as she continued to rant and rave. "Can't you hear me? I'm talking to you!" Dorothy complained when she saw that Kevin was ignoring her questions. "Come with me, Mom," Lily said as she grabbed Dorothy's hand and took her upstairs. Kevin sat patiently on the sofa and looked around the room. He had to admit that the place looked really nice. It was definitely worth the price. After about 10 minutes, Kevin got up and walked into the kitchen. He figured that as long as he had gotten back together with Lily, his anger would eventually fade away. And if the two of them were going to live together again, he should be a little more disciplined and do some of the cooking. He didn't want Dorothy to have anything to complain about. As he looked around the kitchen, he noticed a very nice porcelain mixing bowl. This would be much better for making herbal pills than cookies. It's big enough to make a huge batch, Kevin thought to himself. He opened the refrigerator door and took a look inside. The rest of the kitchen was well appointed too. Everything was Sub-Zero and Viking. Not bad. Once he'd had a good look around, Kevin took out the secret guide that the director had given him to prepare for his mission at the school. There were a lot of very talented people at the school for the healing arts. Because Kevin had absolutely no experience in undercover work, he was afraid that he might be discovered before he had a chance to carry out his plan, and it would be very difficult to escape from such skilled people. So Kevin figured it was time to put some more effort into his preparation for his mission. After reading the first few paragraphs, Kevin got very interested in what he found in the book. He started reading it aloud. Robbery is a question of good versus evil. Some people only care about themselves, so their evil deeds don't end well. Others think they're robbing the rich to give to the poor to bring justice to the world. What's this about? Aren't they just thieves? This book makes it all sound too simple, Kevin thought to himself. But the more he read, the more shocked he became. The book discussed theft as something carried out by both individuals and gangs. It also explained specific types of crimes. The tools mentioned in the guide ranged from blades to tweezers, but what they recommended was not using any mechanical devices at all. According to the book, your body was the best tool you could use. For example, you could simply use your fingers with a light touch. Kevin wondered if that's what pickpockets did. Other tips in the book sounded more like a magician's sleight of hand. Kevin had mixed emotions about what he was reading. He wondered what kind of people had written the book. After a while, he decided to go through the cabinets and whip up a meal for Lily and her mother. Luckily, the place was well stocked. When Dorothy and Lily came back downstairs again, Kevin enthusiastically brought out the meal that he'd prepared for them. Although Kevin didn't know what the two of them had been talking about, he could see that Dorothy looked a lot better now. After they finished eating, they went back to their rooms. The next morning, Lily patted Kevin gently on the cheek and cooed. "You really should get up soon. Otherwise, we'll be late for class." When he heard the word late, Kevin leapt out of bed, startling Lily. "Quick, put on your makeup," he exclaimed. "I'll go wash my face and brush my teeth right away." While Kevin was saying this, he quickly put on his clothes and rushed to the bathroom. He was deathly afraid of disappointing Professor Murdock. He'd already run laps on his first day of school. If he was late today, who knew what kind of punishment he'd get? "Your breakfast is on the table. Go ahead and eat it while I put on my makeup," Lily declared as she picked up her mascara. Kevin almost swallowed his toothpaste when he heard her. He and Lily had been married for a long time, but this was the first time he remembered her having such a pleasant attitude. Sometimes Lily had been a little frosty with him, but now she'd suddenly become more gentle, and he wasn't used to it. They lucked out and didn't hit much heavy traffic on the way to campus. Kevin stepped into the classroom just before the bell rang. "Hey, why isn't Dalton here yet? Did he oversleep?" Kevin wondered as he headed to his seat. Professor Murdock walked in with all her teaching materials and settled in at the podium. She was scheduled to teach them for the entire day, and the first topic was human anatomy. Because they were studying the preparation of medicinal herbs, she focused on the digestive system and the immune system. The professor tried to show how everything was affected by the natural remedies that they would learn about. Although her lecture was very serious and vivid, a lot of students weren't listening very attentively. Some of them just thought it would be fun to go back to school and hang out, and they weren't really interested in studying. Kevin checked to see if anyone was looking and sneaked his phone out of his pocket. He held it under his desk and lowered his eyes to see the screen so he could send Dalton a text to find out why he wasn't in class. The reply came back really fast. "This is Miranda. Kevin, come over here if you can. Dalton's back in the hospital." Kevin was shocked and wondered how this could have happened. Has Nolan's family done this? He had a lot of questions, and he sent a quick text to Miranda that just said, "How?" "It was Dominic and Gwen Archer," Miranda answered simply. What Kevin didn't know was that the Archers had always been jealous of Dalton's family. After the incident with his bar and the attempt to kidnap Miranda, they'd never reconciled. When Dominic found out that Dalton was going to study at the School for Healing Arts, he knew he had to strike first. He grabbed his men and headed to the Steele family's bar. Miranda and Norman happened to be there for some urgent business. Miranda stood up to him, but Dominic was intent on abducting her so he could force Dalton to hand over the bar to him. Of course, Norman wasn't going to stand for this, and a fight broke out. Ever since Dominic had taken Kevin's power pill, he'd made enormous physical progress. Norman had also made a lot of progress after taking his pill, but he was pretty old. So even though he managed to defeat Dominic, he ended up getting injured in the battle. Dalton had been on campus with Kevin when all of this happened. After he got home, he saw that his grandfather was injured and his temper flared. He grabbed all the men he had and rushed over to the Archer's family mansion. Unfortunately, Dominic had set a trap for Dalton. After a fierce battle, Dalton had some nasty flesh wounds and his men were also injured. Fortunately, they were all very tough and there were no fatalities. Kevin was despondent when he read Miranda's text. He immediately sent Gwen Archer a message and asked her, "How the hell could you do that to the Steele family?" Before he could read her reply, a lithe hand suddenly reached down and snatched Kevin's phone away. Kevin jumped up from his chair and was face to face with Professor Murdock. He saw her stern expression. He knew he was in big trouble. "Professor, what's going on?" Kevin pretended to be confused. "Gotcha!" Professor Murdock sneered. This was even worse than the first day of class.
Hi, Kevin here. If you're wondering what happens next, then stay tuned on the Pocket FM Universe channel for more episodes.